What support do you get from all the good part of that sport?
Hey people, Doc again. Excuse the bruising and the fractured wrist. I had a little bit of a tumble the other day, but we're going to get this done anyway. So what we're doing today is we're going to be changing the front and the rear brake pads on the Vulcan 900 Custom. Okay? Right, the tools we're going to be using today, we're going to use a socket set with a 12mm socket. Obviously brake pads. Today we're going to be changing the front and the rear set. It's always advisable to change either the front complete set or the rear complete set. Never just change one pad, change both pads. I'm opting to change front and back. We need a long nose pliers for taking the circlip out, and most importantly we need a torque wrench. You can get these in various shapes, forms, digital, doesn't matter, but because we're dealing with brakes, you want to make sure that the caliper nuts are done up to the specific torque setting that it states in the manual. Again, we're going to refer back to our owner's handbook for all the torque settings, and obviously a pair of gloves. So let's go to it. Right, first job we got to do is we've got to release the brake hose from the actual carrier. Now you can either try forcing it out, but a trick I learned the other day, it's got to be a bit awkward with my hand as it is, but if you get the end started to come out and then pull, it'll pull the rubber bung out. Put that safe to one side. Next thing we've got to do is the caliper bolts themselves. Got to release these off. There's the one top. Remember, as you take the bottom one out, the caliper is going to want to drop, so hold it. Like I say, it's a bit awkward with my smashed wrist at the moment, but we got it. So I'll just draw that out slightly. And then the caliper is going to want to hang, so make sure you're not putting undue stress on your pipe. What you can do is you can use a little clip or a bungee or a zip tie just to hold it up. Right, I've taken the caliper away from the disc now. What we got to remove is, if you look in there, if Logan can get right in, there's a little clip in there that's got to be pried out. Once we pry that out, we take the retaining pin out, then we can remove the pads themselves. But before you do that, just get your new pads and check them against the old ones, that everything is the same codes, same fitting and the same hand, because obviously you've got a set for the front and a set for the back. You want to make sure you're putting in the right set. Right, so we'll just try and get at that clip with the long nose pliers and pry him out. We'll put that down safe with the other bolts. Now this pin has got to come out as well. It's going to be a little bit awkward. Just wiggling back and forth. Pull in as you do. There he comes. Okay. The pin nice and safe. So then your first pad lifts up and slides out. Now, as you can see on these pads, they're quite thick, so they would be good for quite a few miles more. But because pads are so cheap, and I don't know when these were last changed, it's best to do it now. Safe and sorry. That's your first pad. Second pad just pulls out. Make sure you don't lose your retaining spring and that everything is okay. It's all seated nice. Any gunk in here, clean off. So that's what we'll do next, is we'll get some nice warm soapy water and we'll give this brake a good clean, ready for the new pads. Right, so what I got is I got some warm soapy water, just a little bit of normal washing up liquid, my wife's best toothbrush. Just going to scrub and give it the old caliper a nice clean, pistons as well, and then we'll dry it with a rag. You can get dedicated brake caliper spray cleaner, but I find it's expensive and it could be damaging to the atmosphere, so I prefer a bit of warm soapy water. So just dip your brush and scrub away. If you're worried your wife will find out you're using the best toothbrush, just give it a wash before you put it back. All round. This is just the body, so this should be fairly clean if you do fairly good maintenance on your bike anyway, because like I always keep saying, a clean bike is much easier to work on and to see any faults that are going to happen. So just try and get as much of the gunk off as you can. It's going to take a little while to get all the road crud off. Right, and then you can just use a rag then, just to dry the calipers off. Tip of the day, to make sure you're using the right set of pads. If, like me, you bought both sets, and they're not written on their front or back, just a code. The old pads that you've just taken out, physically lay them on top. I can see then that these are a perfect match, different to the rear. So it's a quick tip of the day, use the old pads to find front and back. Right, I've got a little bit of copper grease, so all I'm going to do is a minuscule amount just on the back of the pads, just where the pistons themselves touch, just to stop brake squeal. I'll do that to both pads, making sure that they don't contaminate the front of the pad, the actual pad material itself. You only need a little bit on there, wiping the excess off your fingers. Now the first pad goes in, goes underneath our little clip, like that. The second pad is going to hook over and then be dropped down. So this is awkward to do when you've got a wrist in plaster. And then that's going to drop down and be captured by our pin that goes through. Right. Okay, we got a freshly clean pin, so we need now to slide that back through and then put the retaining clip on. So I'll try and do this one-handed, but it can be a bit fiddly. Pin this through, and then our retaining clip. Now if there's any sign of damage or wear on this, change the clip. Seated back home, nice. Right, in order to give ourselves clearance now so that the new pads will go back over the disc, we have to push these pistons back in. At the moment they're under pressure, so in order to allow them to remove back in, we're going to take the top off the reservoir and we're going to siphon out a little bit of brake fluid just to take some of that pressure off. Right, so we're up top now on the handlebars. We got our front brake reservoir. We're going to remove this cap and the rubber diaphragm. Cap. I'll just get a rag so that we don't drip any fluid onto the bars or onto the bike, because brake fluid is very, very corrosive. It'll destroy anything it comes in contact with. Being careful not to tear the rubber gasket, so we'll just put that down out of the way. As you can see, the fluid is quite dark, so I would say that she's ready to have a fluid change as well. Once we've done the pads, that'll be part 2 of this video. We'll do a fluid change. So what I'm going to use is, I got a little syringe. I'm just going to draw some of this fluid out, because when I push that caliper in, those pistons in, fluid's going to come back into the reservoir, so I don't want this to overflow onto my bike. Again, always have a rag handy, because you do not want this stuff on your bike. Right, just a quick note now, Logan's going to get right over the top of the reservoir, and you can see the 2 little chamber inlets in the bottom of the reservoir. Under no circumstances take all of the fluid out of this reservoir. If you do that, you'll enter air into the system and you'll have to bleed the entire thing right the way through. If you've got ABS, it's got to go back to the manufacturer to be bled through. So I've only removed about half of the fluid out of the reservoir, making sure that those 2 holes down there are still well covered. Right, as you can see, I've managed to push the pads back, pushing the pistons back into the caliper body, giving myself plenty of room now in order to slide over the disc. There. I'll just temporarily put the top bolt in to hold the caliper in place, and then with the bottom caliper and a little bit of lithium grease, this high temperature grease, I'll just grease the axle of the bolt up. Again, you haven't got to go mad. And tighten him. Then I can remove the top one, grease the top bolt, put that back in, and then we're ready to look at what torque setting we need. So again, just a tiny slither all the way around. So I'll just pinch those up with the socket. I'm not going to do them crank on them or anything stupid. That's enough. We'll go and have a look at the torque setting, and then we can have a look at the reservoir. Right, according to the manual, the brake caliper bolt for the front and the rear is 34 Newton meters or 25 foot-pounds. So on our torque wrench, I've got foot-pounds. There's my 25, so I need to wind the torque wrench up until I'm zeroed on 25 foot-pounds. So we know now this is ready to tighten the caliper bolts. Right, so we've set our torque wrench to our 25 foot-pounds, and that's all we do is we tighten until the torque wrench clicks. Hear that? That now is 25 foot-pounds. So we'll do the top. One more just to check, and you know now they're done. Double check the bottom. Top. Done. So all we got left to do is put in our rubber bung, which should be the reverse of taking it out. Feed it in, and then push him round to get him in. Wiggle your pipe a bit, and there he is, all nice and safe. Okay, so that's it for the front caliper pads. We'll stop the video now, we'll get set up and we'll change the rear sets. Basically the same as the front, just slight differences, but we'll cross our bridge when we come to it. Okay.